I would love to hear some examples of maybe like some of your wildlife conflict successes too.
Yeah, there's been quite a few. The first big one I had where I was like, oh my gosh, this actually could work. This woman called me and she said, I have rats in my house. They're taking over everything. I don't want to hurt them, but it's getting to that point where like I can hear them in the walls every single night. They're causing chaos. They're eating my wires. She's like, I literally like don't know what to do other than possibly poison them. And so I was kind of like a last ditch effort for her. I was like, okay, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. And I'll kind of just dissect this as best as I can. So when we're reaching out to a large group of animals, generally what I do is reach out to a spokesman or like the leader of the group, basically, to share the messages. And this one rat came forward and he was like, we don't have anywhere else to go because they're taking down our ecosystem, our home. I was like, okay, so you're losing your habitat. Why did you come to this woman's place? And they were like, because we'll know we'll be safe here. Okay, can we urge you to go? And he was like, well, where, right? Where can we go? And so I was like, all right, this is good. This is good. Where can you go? Called this woman up and I said, all right, let's pull up the map. Help me find a safe space. And we'll literally like draw an energy line in the astral plane or on the earth so they can follow it and then find somewhere safe to go. And about 3 days after we showed the rat and his family basically where to go, they were gone. I was
Wow.
like, what? Now, there's a little bit more to the story there. It was, what can we do to encourage you to relocate in the physical? And I was asking the rat this. It's like, what would deter you without harm? And he gave us all sorts of ideas that were like mint and paprika and chili powder. I mean, he gave me a whole host of like natural things to deter them and a step by step protocol. Like, this is where she needs to put these different things. So I was like, okay, I'll tell her. And so she had her to do list. And part of that was to give them 3 days. He's like, I need time to like find all my family members. And they were gone. And she did it. And I think we're about 2 years after the fact. And she's like, I get one coming in every once in a while. And they go pretty quickly. So that she hasn't had a problem since.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my moment where I was like, this actually works. Let's do this again. How can we change the world? And like bring this into, I guess, a common space or approach.
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, it's also like, what's the harm? Like, it's literally like, what's the harm in at least giving it a shot, you know? Absolutely. And I feel like, rats in general, I think are smarter than a lot of people give them credit for. And I think that that story just highlights like the intelligence of animals in general, and it's cool that you can dive a little bit deeper into that connection with them.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really interesting to see like what works, what doesn't work, why it doesn't work. I just had interesting, I had two beaver cases come up recently. The first one, this woman called me, she said, I've got beavers, they're flooding my house. Like I don't know what to do. And unfortunately, the laws there do not allow you to trap and relocate. It's like the only option you have is to euthanize.
Mm.
And the populations there are quite healthy, if not overpopulated. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Can we try this? Yeah, of course. So we spoke to the beavers, and they're like, yeah, we would love to relocate, but we actually don't know where to go. Similar to the rats. The
Mm.
problem with this situation was the because the populations were so large, they couldn't go downstream because there was another beaver family, and they
Sure.
don't generally go upstream or like travel on ground, solid ground, because then they're susceptible to predation.
Right.
And there were other beaver populations. There's like literally wherever we go, we're at risk or we're going to get beaten up because beavers are territorial. Long story short, the beavers eventually just said, all right, we're going to enjoy the days that we have. And when you decide to euthanize us, that is what it is. Like, we have nowhere to go. And that's just the way it is. So that was not successful for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
But then, like 2 weeks ago, literally 2 weeks ago, this woman's family, somebody that she knows, reached out with a similar problem: beavers. I was like,
Ooh.
oh, shoot. I was like, is this going to be another failed attempt? But what was really cool about this one was that I am just wrapping up my animal communication course. And I said, hey, students, let's give this a go. Here's what's up. And so I think 4 of my students communicated with this group of beavers. And I kind of checked in, but I was like, let's just see what happens. And we were on a very strict time frame. It was like, talk to the beavers today. We have about a day before the trapper comes out. And the beavers were like, what's happening? Why? Okay. Tell me again what happens if we stay? So they really wanted to hear like why they couldn't be there and where they could go. We didn't even really talk about where they could relocate to because the ecosystem's a little bit different there. It was a little bit wider, so they had space to relocate.
Mhm.
The trapper came 2 days later and it was like, there's no beavers here. There's like not a soul to see. And fast forward, we're about 7 days in, and the beavers have not returned. So they relocated themselves after my students were just like, hey, can you guys leave? So that was amazing. I was like putting off the confetti. I was so excited.
That's amazing. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm sure after having an unsuccessful, story with beavers, it was probably really amazing to feel that excitement of making sure that they were actually safe and they found their way out. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was really cool about that was like my students are still brand new. They haven't been doing this for years like I have, and I was like, you don't have to be a professional to have these conversations. You just have to have like that gateway, that understanding of how it works to get the messages across. So everybody can do this if they just like try.
Right. Yeah. I think that's also very inspiring and cool too, is that if we want to connect, it's there for us. If we just dive a little deeper and hone in and just uh, calm our minds down and are able to find that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I want everybody to be able to at least try, you know?
Yeah. What would you, I guess, like, for somebody that's maybe like first starting to, because I know you have courses and stuff, so I obviously don't want to give too much away, but like if you were to give some advice like to somebody that was like getting starting, what would you give?
I always recommend the first steps to take. Like, if you are just brand new to this whole world of what the heck are you even talking about, the first thing that I would say to do is to really start recognizing your subtle senses. Like, what are your subtle senses and how do they work? Which are often called the clairs, like your inner knowing, your inner seeing, your inner hearing, your inner taste is one. I don't know why that came up, but like those inner inner
Yeah.
ways of communication, just to recognize them and then feel into your own heart space and what your body is telling you on a very intuitive scale. Like that alone will take you really, really far down that path. So I would start there, get to know like where your inner radar is. Do you hear? Do you see? Do you feel? And then kind of diving into the world of meditation, whether that be, there's a lot of different styles of meditation out there. So, like, learning what works for you to really quiet your body and quiet your mind. And once you can kind of put those two combinations together and set your intention to connect with a beaver, your dog, whoever, like, all of those pieces will easily fit together and the communications will begin.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's like so fun. I definitely can't wait to try maybe at home, because one of my favorite things to do is to just sit on my back porch and kind of like listen to the birds um and see, like, especially like because they're migrating right now, to see what's coming up in my backyard. And it's funny because I think like a couple weeks ago I was like sitting there, I was like, it's been weird, the last couple of times I've sat out here like I just feel like there haven't been like any birds, and then like I guess I was just kind of subconsciously like thinking about it and like, how come they haven't been visiting my yard? I don't know why, but then they did come back, so I feel like that would be something cool to maybe try to focus on next time, is like if I notice that or pick that up, to try to go deeper. And yeah.
Yeah, you should. Just what is the quote? You are not thinking when you're sensing. And so if you have an intuitive hit to ask a question, like ask the question and then sense. Go into that sensory space versus the thinking space, and then it's a lot easier for that information to come in.